Sweta Chakraborty joins me from here in Washington. She is the president of U.S. operations for We Don't Have Time, a social media network focused on combating climate change. She is also a risk and behavioral scientist. Sweta, thank you so much for joining our program today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we have just seen a few stories there on biodiversity loss, the Amazon, the forest areas in Bavaria. Much of that is blamed on climate change. In your opinion, are these issues that must be tackled together?
Absolutely. These stories illustrate what's going on and just how critical it is to get a grip on it before it goes to any further. We have a planet that is warming, and we have population that is increasing globally. The combination of this creates a vicious cycle that needs more. We need to do more deforestation to be able to have more agricultural lands, to be able to feed more people on the planet. And that entire process is resulting in further emissions. And so it's this real vicious cycle that is coming from more people on the planet needing to have food, which is their right. So something like figuring out how to sustainably feed 10 billion people on the planet by 2050 is the projection, will be really critical. It's our human activities that are leading, and our needs for food, of course, that are leading to biological annihilation. And species are becoming extinct at rates much faster than the natural pace. And this isn't something that is just, something we should be sad about. That's a loss of polar bears. This has real ecological implications. There's a security issue here. Ecological security depends on biodiversity. We are part of a functioning system that requires these different species to coexist. And without them, what we're seeing is increased frequency of events like COVID-19, for example. So we really need to protect biodiversity to ensure that we don't overpopulate the planet with certain populations that are unhelpful to us, that are vectors of disease, like mosquitoes, like rats, and we actually preserve a planet that is functioning for future generations.
You mentioned that crucial 2050 deadline. I want to talk about the key goal from the COP26 conference for countries to reach carbon neutrality by that time frame. How will that impact efforts, do you think, to protect biodiversity?
So protecting biodiversity will actually allow us to achieve carbon neutrality. These two things reinforce each other. That's the good news here. And if we put appropriate policies in place to reach net zero emissions globally by 2050, that's going to also support our biodiversity efforts. So if we promote renewable energy, if we promote carbon capture, if we promote circular economies and additional efforts, now we're looking at the loss of, reducing the loss of biodiversity, and we are establishing protected areas. We're reducing pollution. We're controlling these invasive species that I've been just mentioning. We are reducing over-harvesting, and we're coming up with ways that we can, again, sustainably feed 10 billion people on a planet by 2050, at the same time reducing our carbon emissions to the point where we are neutral. And at some point, we need to get to carbon negative. So that is step one before we actually are even more ambitious to bring back some of the loss that we're experiencing right now. But that's the ambitious goal. But first and foremost, we need to make sure we reach our net neutral goals by 2050.
We only have about a minute left. I want to talk about COP26 a little bit more. It's wrapped up its first week. What are some of the highlights we've seen so far? And what concrete measures, if any, do you expect will come out of it?
So today is really relevant to this discussion. It's Nature Day at the climate conference, and it's really about reinforcing the way we grow and consume food. So we know that 25% of emissions actually come from agricultural production. And so we need to take time and acknowledge our relationship with deforestation, with agriculture, with land use, because we know that right now, just right now, every 6 seconds, forests the equivalent size of one football pitch in the United States is lost. And that is something we can't have. So that is something that has been really emphasized today. We've seen protests today in Glasgow that is calling for more recognition and awareness of needing to protect, again, our natural habitat, because without it, we're talking about real ecological security issues.
So many issues to tackle. Sweta Chakraborty, thank you so much for breaking it all down for us today.
Thank you.